Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And yesterday was the Jubilee normal battles, max score. Today we are going into the boss battles, which is going to be highly dependent on who you have. This team outputs a literal butt ton of damage, but you do need literally everyone to access it. So, team builds are going to vary. Today, this video, we're going to go into Boss Battle 1. Both of them are 5-turn limits, however, the first fight is the single target fight, which is not typical. Normally it's the second fight that's single target, but it doesn't really matter all that much. We are fighting Phobio, and the only thing that he really does that is annoying is does have synergy and crit resistance. So if you happen to crit or you happen to synergy with your 2% natural chances, you are going to cut your damage down. He also has a lot of resistances, which you can remove if you have Gobwa and Shuna and the team, but otherwise if you don't, you are just going to do slightly less damage than normal. Kind of unfortunate. And then he does nerf blues, specifically blues. So you could use a green orb team if you wanted to, and you would still be just fine. It's just that you have to contend with the resistances right here. The starting hand is a 4 orange and 1 green, 1 blue. So 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3 spread based on your character slots. So the first character is always going to have the 2 non-orange orbs. And yeah, that's about it. It's built for an orange team, obviously, but you can use greens. It's just that 4 oranges is not going to give you a great starting hand either. So we're going to have a couple of teams here. Obviously, my highest score team, this is really not that impressive considering what the other scores are, but I really don't have time right now to sink too much into this, because if we look at this, we've got me, and then we've got 1.9, 2.4, 2.5, and then we got a bot, so don't ignore the bot. There's no way to get 5.7 million. But like TM has 2.5 million. He has more than a million score higher than me. So this is by no means the best teams to use. But it is what I've found that has worked. So good luck. Let's jump in. Alright, my current high score team, definitely not the best run, but it is a run that got me a decent score. It is Shuna, Divine General Raphael, Primal Demon Diablo, Violet Blanc Gobla, with Space Milim in the support slot, so we can start with 36 skill points, which is going to be very, very important. And it's very important because we have multiple Primal Demons on this team, which means that we can full orb change turn 1. So let's do a stack of Raphael. Cool. Let's bring in Blanc for Raphael. That way our entire front line is Primal Demon. Use the orb change. Full hand of rainbows. We're not going to use Blanc's skill right now because I don't want to get ults. I just want to get rainbow orbs here. So we're just going to send this 6. Call it good. Ideally, you're going to have quite a few buffs being held on by Goblet and Blanc in the back. But you also do need some decent RNG right here to get the Blanc and Goblet EX ults on this turn specifically. So we're going to use a stack of Control, and then we will use another stack of Raphael for Violet. She's going to go away. So Raphael come in, stack of that, cool. And then we'll also use the free 40 points and the orange gauge buff from Blanc, and then we'll bring Diablo in on this turn. And if you can get the EX ults for them, then you're looking good. But let's use a stack of the debuffs from Gobla. That way we can cap her out by the time the nuke happens. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Because of the orange buff, we do have the 2 EX ults, again, very important, with Diablo up front, because we need to hold on to Diablo's buff here. So we're going to send both Gobla and Blanc away with the physical buff. And 180 points, double gauge for Shuna, we're looking good. So let's use the 80-point buff. Boom. And then we'll use Blanc's skill again to give us another 40 points and to give us the gauge increase that'll last for essentially the rest of the fight. The turns that need it, at least. But we'll take Goblet out, and then we'll use the Divine General Raphael buff, because it's 100% dark, or 120% dark damage, which both our nukers are dark, so that works out very well. And then we'll bring Violet in. And then if we can get multiple ults for Violet, then we're looking good. We get an EX ult here. What I've found happens is that Diablo generally steals most of my orbs for any run, and things don't work out very well. So I think I only get 2 alts for Violet here. I know people have been getting more than that if they're lucky, but it is what it is. So here, we've already used pretty much everything. We're going to use 1 more stack of control, but we don't have enough points to use the Raphael stack, so we're going to have to dismiss that. But we need to have the control active for the next turn, which is the nuke, because it will enhance our damage. And then we'll simply go ahead and use Shuna twice to get a full hand of rainbows, plus the 2 alts. So Violet, because it's an EX alt, will give us 50% weakness strike for everybody. Well, that matters, the Warrior's Mind 2.0 units. So cool damage there, and then 120k, whatever. More importantly, the weakness strike. So with the first stack of control that we had on turn 2, going into turn 3, Blanc and Gobble got 30% from control. We just got another 50% from Violet. And we're going to get another 25% because of this other Violet alt. Unfortunately, this nuke hand is pretty much all Violet orbs, and you want all Blanc or all Goblet orbs. That's not really the best hand, but it's my best run that I've had the patience to do before doing other things. So, we've used pretty much everything. We don't need to do anything else with the front line, so we're just going to take them out. You bring Blanc in for whoever has the most orbs, as long as it's not Violet, because she's gonna, she impacts our damage quite a bit. So here we go, full hand of Violets, unfortunate, but let's use the big time Blanc buff. Let's use the final, well, a second use of Goblet's debuffs, and that should leave us with just enough points to use the Pierce buff and debuff with Goblet, and then we'll be fully capped out on everything. Nothing else to use here. And we will nuke with a full hand. And again, you want more Blanc normal orbs than anybody else, or Goblet, doesn't matter. But Violet does 1.6 million. Goblet with her single target does 191 million damage. And then Blanc with her AoE does 160 million damage. And then if you had follow-up like Goblet or Blanc orbs, they do like 5 or 6 or 7 million damage or something. Something wild. But that is my best run so far with this team. Definitely RNG to be had here, but it does give me my current best score. So that's my best team that I've had so far. Alright, the next team is the half meta team, assuming you also have Tournament Stalwart Lumi. If you don't have her, then you're just going to replace her with some other kind of support character to help Goblet do more damage. It really doesn't matter who. Whoever you like, Fern or Frieren or something like that. I don't know. But we are bringing Tempest Elite Benimaru, another single target dark character with the physical buff. We're bringing Visions of Coleus Blanc strictly for the alt swap. The weakness strike, if we can make use of it, would be cool, but not too diehard. She's very replaceable. New Year's Blessing Shinsha will give us a relatively cheap alt buff for physical characters. The crit we're not going to worry about since we don't want to crit this fight, and we have no one to give us crit anyways. And then Goblet, obviously, our single target DPS, and Lumi if you have her, but again, if you don't, just bring some other kind of support buff for Goblet. If you can do, like, 2nd Anniversary Hinata for an element buff, or the really, really old Dark Shinsha for the dark buff, and another single target dark character, that would also work just fine. But turn 1, we don't really have a good thing here. We don't have a converter who can handle this. So we could steal with Lumi, and we are going to steal with Lumi, just to give us 5 orbs more than anything else. But it's definitely not the best scenario. And then we'll bring in Goblet, because it's more important that Goblet gets her single target ult now, or very close to it. And this is also why I brought an ult swapping character like Blanc, so that we can just swap away whoever's ult we do decide to get here. And if you don't have Lumi, you might be better off just bringing like free-to-play Cleash or something and converting turn 1 into full 6 oranges, or whoever can do that for you. Light Hinata can do that. But let's go ahead and convert with this. We do get access to Shuna because of the traits, and we do get a lot of Goblet orbs, which means that we do get her EX ult, which is pretty good. And okay, yeah, we'll bring in Shinsha so we can alt swap next turn into an orange orb specifically. So we brought 2 alt swappers, 1 blue, 1 orange. Shuna will change whatever orb, so it doesn't really matter that much. It's just the cost. And then we get a lot of extra Goblet orbs here, which is great, because now we can just steal those and get a full hand of Lumi orbs now. So let's alt swap away. Let's use the physical buff now on Gobwa. Since Lumi already has her own physical buff and the physical damage buff, she doesn't need anything from Benimaru. So Gobwa needs it, because she doesn't have anything personal. All of her buffs and debuffs are team-wide. But let's bring Lumi in for Gobwa. We could yoink these orbs, but, you know, probably we would still get the EX ult. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so we don't need to actually use the steal skill here. We would still get it anyways. And then her personal buff is only 1 turn, so we don't use it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now our 2 biggest damage dealing characters have their EX ults. We can use Lumi's buff here and then send her to the back and hold on to it. And then we just need to build up enough points to use the Shinsha buff, the Gobwa buff, and if your points allow, the weakness strike from Blanc, which again is not super duper necessary. I'm not sure why I used the alt swap there, because we could have just held on to some extra points and maybe stored up a little bit extra, because we would convert it anyways, right? Shuna's not gonna not change any orbs, but we do cap out at 150. We could have had a little bit more. If maybe we had a little more, maybe we could have been fine with using our other skills, but maybe you can play this team a bit better than me than when I was thinking about it at midnight last night. But the final turn, here we are. We do have a Benimaru ult. It'd be cool if he had an EX ult, but not the end of the world. We'll use the Shinsha buff, and that's, like 80% ult damage. But we do not have enough points, unfortunately, for Blanc. So, gonna miss out on that. It's pretty expensive, though. You don't have to bring Blanc, either, since you do have Shinsha already. You could bring another cheap buffing character, like that second anniversary Hinata, or someone like Wielder of Magic Shinsha to buff oranges and give EX ult damage. Like, that's also a very acceptable, viable support character. And then we have everyone up front. We'll use the debuffs, we'll use the Pierce buff, we'll use Shuna to give us a full hand of oranges, and then we will nuke. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So Benimaru does 1.2 million. Gobwa does 5 million. And Lumi does 6 million damage. So definitely not the 300-something million that we did in the last run, but options are a bit limited when you only have half the team to use, right? So Blanc is bringing a lot of power, the new Blanc. Violet bringing some other stuff, but that's the half meta score. Obviously you can do a lot better, but that's what I've got for you, at least to show off. Alright, time for some fun. The Frieren team plus the new Blanc. So not Gobwa, not Shuna, not Violet, Blanc. Because we have a lot of power here, and even though the stage has synergy resistance, we can kind of get around that and still get like a little bit from Fern, because she's giving 100%. So it's not the full power, but it is power. We are, however, bringing Raphael. Gonna be kind of important here. So if you don't have Raphael, you could bring a triple orb changer. You could bring Wielder of Magic Shinsha for the orange buff. We already are getting an orange buff from Blanc, though, so it's like we are doubling up on it just to ensure that we have protection gauge and stacks and points and everything. It is just nice, and they do work well together. And we are trying to use every single buff on this team, so we are bringing the Divine General Hero as well for the Rewind and the Pierce power. Since Pierce is actually what the stage wants us to use, we might as well do it. But we're going to steal with Raphael turn 1. You might need to reset a few times because he's not guaranteed to steal those 2 orbs. And I had to reset like 10 times, I think, for all my runs. So you do get lucky, though. Raphael does have an ult. We keep Blanc in the back. Not a big deal. We don't have any orbs for Raphael right now, which is kind of unfortunate. But we should still be okay with that incoming Raph orb. We would have 4. And then we'll bring Blanc in. We'll bring in that other one. We'll use Himmel to convert this entire hand, and then we can use Blanc to give us that massive 70% increase, plus the extra points. And now 4 orbs will enable us to, 1, get the EX ult for Blanc, and 2, because of using Blanc's 40-point skill, we have exactly enough to use the Unleash Magic state for Frieren, which means on turn 5, we'll get some resistances down on Phobio, and we'll be able to counteract his resistance up effect that he has permanently. So, we're looking good here. 200 skill points, the EX alt for the character I really care about. We do need to hold on to a few buffs here, because we are running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 skills that cost 90 points, which is more than what we can use in 5 turns. Well, on turn 5 just alone. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Things can get a little bit interesting. You could use the rewind at any point if you really, really wanted to. You could use it now, you could use it on turn 4, you could technically use it on turn 5 as well if you want to get some extra damage out of some like Blanc normal orbs, if you want to play it that way. That's a possibility. But now with 2 turns left, let's use some skills. So let's use the Fern skill, because that's the 100% synergy power. Boom. And then let's also use... Let's see. Are we bringing the hero in? Are we rewinding here? I can't remember. I cannot remember what I do here off the top of my head. Alright. Hero, come on. Click the button, Joker. Jesus Christ. Oh my god, how long do I sit here? Okay, I bring the hero in for Frieren. There we go. And then we use the Pierce buff. Okay. And then we'll send it. We are not rewinding. We'll rewind next turn then. A bit interesting. Again, you don't have to follow this exact format of how I'm doing things. If you want to rewind early, you certainly can. But we do have to use the Pierce buff because that's just another 90-point skill. So there's the Unleash Magic kicking in. So now the resistances are applied. Frieren has extra attack, which is cool. And now we have a full hand of orange. Let's rewind now. That way we can have enough points to use everything. So buff, buff. We need 180 points to nuke, and we currently have 90 left over. So we could use like one more skill. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply use this. And then we could have just sent the 6 and then orb changed with Himmel on the next turn to ensure that we had a full hand. Probably a better option for you as well. So again, play this team a little bit smarter than me. But now we've gained back enough points to use those other 2 buffs, which is important, and yeah, that would have worked out a lot better had I done that. But we can steal. We do have another Himmel anyways, so not a truly huge loss, but we could steal with Raphael to ensure that we actually have Blanc orbs, and then we'll bring Frieren in, who doesn't have an ult, actually. I lied. She does not have an ult back. What was I talking about? More importantly, we have enough points to use the full buff, and then Himmel can convert that last blue orb. And now we have a fully buffed up Blanc with a couple orbs. And her ult does 48 million damage. And then her follow-up orbs do 1 million a shot. And then the 200% orb will do 2 million plus. So there we go. There is a Frieren team with Blanc added. Obviously, if you get other ults for other characters, then it will add a little bit to your score. But that is the Frieren Blanc team. Alright, in case you perhaps summoned for that rerun of ODL or you already had them lying around, we can use them here. The stage does not nerf greens, so Milim can be an effective single-target DPS character. However, we do have synergy resistance to contend with, so Diablo's buffs are not going to be as powerful, but it's still going to be fairly strong. So Isis, Diablo, Raphael again, Milim, and then antagonist Shinsha. Running Space Milim up front for the skill points so that turn 1 we can convert the entire hand with Shinsha because she changes antagonist orbs to orange, of which Isis is antagonist as well. So we left her up in the first slot because the first slot has those 2 orbs that are not. So we'll use a stack of Raphael. We'll bring Shinsha in for Raphael. We don't want her in for Isis, because we do want the protection gauge that we have attached to her. It's kind of important, because 6 oranges right here would not actually get us what we want, unless we had traits. So just keep that in mind, is that I have access to the protection gauge on turn 2 traits. You might not, and you might have to run this a bit differently. So we use the free skill for Milim to get Synergy Pierce. Okay, cool. The traits kick in. We have just barely a Protector Guy. Let's convert all of the Milim orbs to rainbow, use the green buff. The protection gauge, or the charm we're using on Guy is the alt gauge charm on greens. So now rainbow orb plus the Diablo buff plus the charm buff means that we're going to get the EX alt for Milim here. Because we had full hand of oranges first turn, we've got rainbows here, perfect. Get a lot of points back. We brought Isis up front so we could use Drago now as well. Although, actually, no, we might get sealed, actually. However, Guy will take care of that, because Guy has Lord's Ambition, which means that we can't be debuffed traditionally, right? So we can use Guy now, or we could wait. Doesn't really matter. If we had a green orb incoming, then I could have just used Guy, but not a huge deal. But we are going to start stockpiling a little bit. So we have the synergy buff that we have to use now, or the dark buff from Raphael. Either one of them would work. Gotta use the green buff again because it's only a one-turn thing. I wish it was two, but that might have made it too broken, because it's still a very, very strong skill. We'll bring Shinsha in, and then we'll bring Raphael in. We have 3 turns left, so that means that turn 4, we need to have enough points to use the Raphael big-time buff and hold on to that in the back. And as long as we have everything that we need, we're going to be okay. But we can't use any more stacks of Raph, unfortunately, because we would be a bit short on total skill points for the run if we were to use that 40 cost skill right there. So, okay, AoE, cool beans, yep, whatever. There's the weakness resistance down. Excellent. Now 180. Let's use Raphael. And then we are pretty much ready to go, minus sending this ult. So, we just don't have enough points again. So let's just go ahead and hold on to those buffs in the back. Technically, Isis will also have that space buff because she is a space character, and Raphael's buffing both dark and space. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. Not that it really matters that we have Guy, because we're going to use the Diablo skill instead of using like a stack of Raphael. But 122 points. Okay, cool. Let's do that. And then an ult here, which does actually increase Milim's weakness strike, because she is on Divine General, technically. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. And now we have, I think, just enough points to do what we need to do here. Because we got to use the 50-point skill from Shinsha, the 50-point skill from Isis, and then the 30-point Drago buff from Isis. And we have barely enough to do that. So let's bring Milim in for Diablo since he has the most orbs. And then we'll bring Shinsha in for Raphael. And here we are. Full hand already, naturally, so that's good. But let's use the 2 other remaining buffs from Isis, and then we shall nuke with Milim. So boom, boom. Excellent. And let's send it. Isis and Shinsha not really going to do too much damage, but the 3 Milim orbs is great. Isis does 225, awful. Shinsha does 96k, awful. Milim does 22 million. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Not the greatest, but still pretty good. And then each hit is over 500,000. So there is another team option for you. You know, assuming you have these characters, you might have to swap a few out instead. Maybe Raphael, instead of that, you do the Dark Shinsha or the 2nd Anniversary Hinata for the element buff still. But there we go. There are 4 teams, technically, that you can use to clear Boss Battle 1 with some variance of score. If you used something else that were not one of these team builds or something very similar, you know, let me know in the comments so other people can see that, maybe glean some ideas off. But that's it from me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.